Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the University of Fort Hare, Alice campus. We're here for the launch of the first joint marine lab, which is part of the ACEP Phuhlisa program. My name is Garth van Heerden, and I manage the ACEP Phuhlisa program. Also, a warm welcome to those who are connected via Zoom. We are under stage 4 load shedding, so we hope that the connection stays up for the full hour. Okay, just some house rules for those of us here. Can I ask you to please switch off your cell phones or put it on flight mode? These are not on silent because it interferes with. We are using a cell phone signal to stream, so if you don't mind. Also, in terms of COVID SOPs, please maintain your social distancing, and except for the speakers, please keep your face mask on, covering both your mouth and your nose. Thank you. We joined this morning by a number of dignitaries from the University of Fort Hare, Department of Science and Innovation, and also NRF. I will leave that over to Prof. Kuhlumbu to introduce them. Today we're launching, as I said, the first of 4 laboratories, namely the bioeconomy and biodiscovery lab at Fort Hare. The Joint Marine Labs program forms part of the Phuhlisa program. And the aim of the program is basically to support researchers in marine science at historically disadvantaged institutions. And the reason for doing this is when the ACEP poll was opened, transformation was a big challenge, and all the DSIs that were funded threw their hands up and said we can't find students of color. But the reason was because people were looking in the wrong places, and that is why we decided to go against the traditional approach of bringing students, excellent students, to SAIAB. We decided rather to support the students where they are at the University of Origin, and basically focus the program around supervisor development, rather than focusing directly on student development. And in 2012, we started with 8 students, and the program rapidly grew. To last year, we supported just over 100 students across 4 universities. Supporting the marine science researchers at these universities enabled us to scale the program, because if we had to bring students to SAIAB, we only would be able to supervise so many students. But because we're supporting 20 supervisors across 4 universities, that enables us to support so many more students. Now, traditionally, we provided bursaries. We partnered with HICD at NRF, getting bursaries for the students, and we provided funding for research projects at the HDIs from within SAIAB. And this allowed us to grow, but we realized that we needed to take the next step, and that is to actually grow research capacity or research infrastructure at our partner university. As Clifford coined the phrase, taking excellence to the people. Because SAIAB always gave access to the researchers. They were welcome to come to Grahamstown and use our research platforms, but that is very limiting. In that Fort Hare, that is not that far from SAIAB. they can access the platforms. But other universities like UNIZU and UWC, that is much further. It is more difficult for them to access research platforms. So now the Joint Marine Labs program will establish laboratories at those universities and empower the researchers at those universities. Okay, I can maybe give a little bit more background later on, but first I want to give over to Prof. Vuhlungu to do the introduction to us.
For watching this event. First of all, just to say it's nice to be back on granted in recent months, working remotely. With people here, there's something exciting about Flopedi and colleagues, DSI, NRF. And it does give that sense that we are indeed coming back. We've turned the corner. And of course, we still have to mask, do those masks and do the sanitizing. Mine is a very big task really, is to welcome us all, those who are here in the room and those who are connecting remotely to this event. A couple of remarks. It's very important, and we're very excited as UFH to be part of this four-way partnership: UWC, UFH, Zululand, and of course Walter. I think it's a unique relationship, and we're very proud to be part of it, and excited about the possibilities that it brings. And we have taken adopted a very bold posture as the university. We're talking about renewal of the institution. We're talking about finding new niche areas that will kind of raise the bar, but also to enrich what we offer by way of programs, but also what we do by way of research. So this is one example, and this will be one of the drivers of such initiative. So we're very proud of this, and we think that it will contribute way beyond what we imagined it will. Not only for communities around here, but beyond the province. We also, and although you can do marine sciences away from the ocean, we're also proud that we have two legs as the University of Fort Hare. One leg here in Alice, a deep rural area, a very, very historic kind of site, and it's very significant that we're meeting here in Alice rather than elsewhere. And then we've got a site along the coast in East London, which also raises the potential of what we can do with this initiative appropriately. We can do so many things. Once we get on the road, there's so many other things that could be spin-offs of this. So that's the funding that will be allocated. Therefore, will be very important for us to get state-of-the-art equipment, laboratory equipment, so that we can be right there with the best in terms of research and ultimately teaching. So for us and for the science faculty, science and agriculture faculty, very important. Just to note also that here historically, Dr. Ngumane was telling me that he studied here for three months. He studied for 3 months. I will not say what he walked away with. It's a secret that I will keep. But it's significant that in your time, probably it was the Faculty of Science standalone, Faculty of Agriculture standalone. And of course, through the last 30 years, because of rationalization, which we've seen in other institutions, the two faculties have come together. It might have been difficult at the time, but we've now managed to find so many synergies in that one broad-based faculty. So we are science and agriculture. And for purposes of this project, we are very much better positioned than many. Because yes, marine sciences research with pharmaceutical kind of focus, but also there's agriculture. There's so many other things that we can talk about in relation to this. So we're very proud.
Because I'm an Eastern Cape boy in every respect. My home is in Paddy, which is like what, 120 km from here in the south. I was born at Frey Hospital, East London. I did my matric across the river. The valley or the river? Yes. Across the river here at Zululand High School many years ago. Yes. I saw the students, you were not born yet. And then also in the early 2000s, I was responsible for managing what was then called the Historically Black Universities Program, which included all of the black campuses at that time. I think there were about 11, obviously, with University of Fort Hare being one of those. So really, I think it's a special occasion for me to be back here and to hear my language being spoken properly, as to being mixed up in Gauteng. So, Prof, it's a pleasure, and thank you for welcoming us here. And it's good to see Graham after many years. And we come from the old HBU program, and also other members of the University of Fort Hare that are here today and joining us virtually. Gilbert, my colleague from across the fence in Pretoria in the DSI, and Angus and my colleagues from the NRF. Good morning, everyone. Through the ACEP program, and maybe we haven't said what ACEP stands for, African Silicon Ecosystem Program. And that's a pivotal species, but I'll leave that to guests to talk about, because originally I'm a microbiologist that has pretended to be a marine scientist. And the ACEP Phuhlisa program through NRF-SAIAB has been spearheading what's really been, and with the pivotal support by the DSI, what's really been the heartbeat of driving transformation within the marine sciences by supporting in a very directed way, supervisor-led research capacity development, in this area, in the 4 universities that have been mentioned here. But anchoring that has been a portfolio of research infrastructure platforms that enables the research leaders, the academics and supervisors, and their postgraduate students to have access to cutting-edge research infrastructure in the environment, marine environment, that allows this leading-edge research and training to take place with a particular focus on black and female postgraduate students at the participating institutions. DSI has now taken this flagship program to the next level, I think, through securing this resources that has enabled the establishment of this joint marine laboratory program at these universities. So we gather here today to launch the DSI NRF-SAIAB University of Fort Hare Bioeconomy and Biodiscovery Joint Marine Laboratory. And this brings this research. On the one hand, you can look at it as research capacity development initiative, but at the other end, you can also look at it as the sharpening, of the excellence around, marine science. So it's a pleasure and honor for me to represent the NRF, at this launch. And as we said earlier, University of Fort Hare, this lab is the first one off the blocks in terms of being launched operationally. For the NRF, it's an important crystallization of one of our strategic intents when we look at our strategic framework that we call Vision 2030. And Vision 2030 for us, goes hand in hand with our transformation framework that looks at a number of things. One, we are committed to transforming the research cohort, the people that are the producers of knowledge. And but the way that we look at it is that you have to transform by diversifying the actors, the places, and the spaces where knowledge generation takes place. That to us is at the core of the transformation of the research cohort and the science cohort. So in both our strategic framework, Vision 2030, and our transformation framework, we look at this as an important element. And not just that, in order for world-class research and knowledge generation to take place, you require world-class research infrastructure to underpin and to undergird that. Otherwise, people don't have the wherewithal to compete, both at a national and at an international level. So we believe that the launch of this bioeconomy and biodiscovery joint marine lab is an important milestone along this journey of releasing and unleashing the excellence that's already amongst us, which simply requires scaling and diversification beyond our individual institution. And maybe just to refer to what Garth was talking about earlier, throughout our history of apartheid-stained society, as Black people, we've always had to go somewhere else to experience quality. Yeah? So if you want your children to go to a good school, you must send them to town, or to the suburbs. If you want good health facilities, you must go from the Eastern Cape to the Western Cape. Just about every aspect, you've got to, if you want quality, you must go somewhere else. And true transformation of society in that context means that, or it requires that we localize, embed, and endogenize quality. Locate it where the people are, so that people don't have to go somewhere else to look at quality, so that people follow quality wherever it is, irrespective of whoever it is to be found with. And through that, we can make excellence a way of life and a default position for all the aspects of our endeavors and the life that we pursue in our different areas of work. And that way, quality and excellence are associated with whoever is of quality and whoever is excellent, as opposed to our social demographic, history of separating people and then making certain associations, with who they are and what they are. As the NRF, we believe that excellence is a non-negotiable foundation from which we can launch ourselves into the global knowledge enterprise, being confident of what we are putting on the table, as opposed to joining other people's initiatives and activities. And in this particular case, this is our initiative. It's born and bred, amongst us. And the important thing with whether or not initiatives, particularly transformative projects, succeed or not, it's about the leadership. And the leadership that has got vision, a leadership that is not afraid to depart from the norm, a leadership that is not afraid to put their case forward, irrespective of who is likely to believe or not to believe them. Leadership that is prepared to take the risks, you know. Because I think that when Gilbert was going amongst his colleagues at the DSI and saying, you know, we need to put money into this, you know, everyone was saying, oh, but is it going to work? You know? So he had to stick his neck out and say, I believe it's going to work. And it has, because he's got support and leadership at different levels, at the participating institutions, within DSI itself, at SAIAB, who are the coordinators, you know, of the project, and in other spheres where people are saying, you know, let's get this done, you know, already. So this initiative embodies another aspect of our strategic framework as the NRF, which is the pursuit of impact through the science and research that we as the NRF and our partners in the higher education system seek to promote, support, advance, you know, and develop. And amongst the pathways towards that impact is the adoption of multidisciplinary approaches. So here in this group, you know, we're looking at, you know, different disciplines coming together to look at what lies, you know, below the ocean, and what is the value that sits there that has up to now not been extracted. And you can't extract that value by simply just being a marine biologist, you know, because all you're going to do is just to count the species and look at the stock assessments and things like that. But this one, we're looking at combining these different disciplines in order to extract value that would not be possible to see and extract by looking in a unidisciplinary way. So we see this initiative as enabling multidisciplinarity, and through multidisciplinarity we'll be able to achieve a lot more than we can all by ourselves. So we congratulate the University of Fort Hare and SAIAB and all the DSI and the partners that are involved in this, and wish to thank the DSI. We thank you, Gilbert, and for your commitment and unflinching support, you know, for this initiative. And we thank Gus for championing it from the NRF National Facility side of leadership, and Garth as a person who's on the ground and working with our partners from the different institutions. So we see today as a step, as a further step that advances our goal towards transformation of the very different parts of our science system. And this is where we are clearly demonstrating that if one is committed, if one is driven, if one is principled around the need to diversify and transform our national science system, it's possible and it can be done, and it can be done in an excellent way, and in a manner in which excellence itself is the core principle and the core driver. Because maybe before I sit down, I'm one of those people that believe that nothing is worth doing if it's not being done in an excellent way, in the best possible way. Definitely not research. Okay? Don't bother. If your aspiration for that research is not excellence, then don't bother. You're wasting everybody's time, you know, and your time. And through this initiative, I think that we can extend and scale up excellence within the marine science, domain, to reach other domains and other disciplines in a manner that is integrated, that can provide greater value, not just for the science and innovation enterprise, but also for our society in terms of the opportunities that lie in the products of this process towards improving the quality of life of the health of the nation, as an example. But there are other opportunities, you know, for innovation, whether they're talking about the pharmaceutical industry, whether they're talking about new ways of describing and finding new life, within and beyond our oceans. So I thank you.
And thank you very much, Prof, for welcoming us here. I think for us, it's one of those moments that basically shows. I mean, sometimes when you're planting certain things, something it bears fruits. I think years ago, because ACEP previously, when I joined the DSI, ACEP was primarily didn't have students, had a budget, but didn't have students. Basically, was a one-year funding program where actually it was a question of who knows who. It's just a question of connections. If you are connected, you'll get funding. If you don't know, you wouldn't. It was a difficult process to manage. And then when Angus joined as the manager of ACEP at the time, it came at a time when we thought of transforming the way ACEP is supposed to operate. Sort of like becomes competitive. And like Angus used to say that after that, yes, it was happening, but then the challenge was that this government, most importantly, we're looking at the discipline, marine sciences was not transformed. So how do we do that? It was a problem to say, as Garth has indicated, it was a platform, but then for sustainability, I mean, to be honest with you, transformation previously in most cases was seen as lowering the standards. But to say, okay, fine, for us to be able to get anywhere as South Africa, to be able to realize the potential of this geographic advantage, because this is a geographic advantage. We have a coast that we have not necessarily a huge coast, a long coast, which we have not been able to utilize fruitfully to benefit South Africans, to ensure that a huge broad number of South Africans benefit from this geographic advantage. So when SAIAB and Angus and the team then decided to say, okay, fine, let's start focusing on what we have. Let's not, because as we all know, I mean, the oceans, the strength of the oceans in the country at the time. I mean, when you talk about ocean sciences or marine sciences, that resonated with UCT. Yes, in the West, but then we have a large part of institutions in the East. So how do you ensure that they develop? I think we have coastal HDIs. How do we ensure that they come to the party? Because I think we realize that lack of access to infrastructure, lack of access to resources, limited participation in this space. And so coming in new, it becomes difficult. I mean, you're saying, okay, you want to do this, because competition, there's actually no competition. And thanks to Angus and the colleagues at SAIAB at the time, and at the time he was based in two institutions. He had 2 feet. I don't know. Fortunately, he was at NRF because of the 2 feet. One was at Sion, one was at SAIAB. So he basically was able to do that, to manage very well, because as both the NRF, it was easy for him to be a node manager at NRF at Sion, as well as be an ACEP manager at SAIAB. So he managed to combine the two, and it became easy to an extent that, okay, fine, looking at having students at SAIAB, growth was almost impossible. And when the proposal came, you say, okay, fine, let's try and have a set aside ACEP money, some portion of ACEP money, and engage with the coastal universities. Initially, it was University of Fort Hare, not Fort Hare University, and USU, to say, okay, guys, let's partner in this, and then we'll provide a support. And it was also not necessarily as easy as that, because the challenges of students into marine sciences were different because students coming into marine sciences, as Angus used to say, that the problem is that now some of the things that we have to offer are not necessarily, they will not necessarily ensure that they go into this field. Some of them don't have some social skills, like basic things. So what if the Phuhlisa program is designed to accommodate them, so that ultimately they'll be able to do that. Things like swimming. I mean, most of them, I think, want to do this discipline, but they need to be in the water. They're scared of the water. So how do we ensure that they are comfortable into the water, in water? So that was provided by this program. And and some of them didn't know how to drive. I mean, they're university students, postgraduate students, but they don't even have driver's licenses. So how do we ensure that we provide that? So even though normally we would say, no, but then this is a academic qualification, don't necessarily have to, but then that counts a lot. So that was introduced into that program. So thanks to the vision of guys like Angus, it materialized. And then at some stage, we reached a stage where we realized that, okay, fine, because, you know, when you're working for a department like science and technology at the time, they told you, give them numbers. Okay, yes, we successfully had so many number of students, and they tell you, no, but then you have to grow the numbers. But then unfortunately, capacity is capacity. So again, we sat down and said, okay, fine, let's grow capacity by going to other coastal universities. These are not the only Eastern Cape based universities, but then let's go to other provinces. So we went to other provinces and the program grew. And again, still, it got saturated, the program got saturated. And then it needed some innovative way of doing things. So how do we then innovate and grow this to ensure that ultimately the universities themselves, this historically disadvantaged universities, are able to do it on their own. So how do we do that? And then we all knew that it's all a question of capacity. So when then a proposal came to say, this is the plan. What if we establish facilities, different facilities in this all different institutions? Will it work? Then yes, I mean, we had to go and engage other colleagues that unfortunately not to be here, who were gracious enough to provide us with resources to ensure that no, ACEP, because their resources are purely for infrastructure. They are able to say, okay, well, this makes sense. This basically is what's gonna build us. And to be honest with you, I was very, very excited to hear that this initiative is getting off its ground, and because it also contributes to the vision. I think just a few years ago, the white paper on science and technology innovation was approved, and then from then the implementation plan of that white paper, which is the decadal plan on science, technology, and innovation, will start implementing on the 1st of April. So all this is aligned with that vision. Basically, this gives me the sort of like the instrument to say, yes, we already ahead. We're on track. This is what we have. This because when we had some talks just before we came here with Prophet on the other side, the vision that is there, because this has to be, we have to be innovative when we have in certain things. Innovation is key to ensure that we derive benefits. This talks a lot to the objectives of Operation Kwakisa. This, I think, most importantly, will highlight what we have achieved ever since Operation Kwakisa was initiated. This basically stems in to say, this is where we're going. And this, for me, creates an excitement, a very, very big excitement to say, basically looking at Angas, sort of like being scared what's coming after this. Because, but I'm not necessarily fear to say, okay, fine, because I'm confident, based on what I've seen, what is coming out, that if I go to different instruments within the department, I'll be able to get a buy-in to say, yes, we've put part of money for research and for capacity development. Now we need resources for infrastructure. This is infrastructure. This is where we are now. So how do we grow to ensure that universities like this one is able to basically cut their own path, necessarily looking at creating something new, because there's always, I always tell people, there's always room for something new. Today we are here witnessing the beginning of such. So I thank you very much, colleagues from SAIAB, for taking a lead in this, because this is one of the areas that we definitely, our country needed something like this. So, and thank you very much for the University of Fort Hare to agree to say, okay, fine, we don't mind. I mean, because sometimes, I mean, I've been engaged with quite a lot of universities on different aspects. For them, moving out of their comfort zones, it's not, and most especially when you tell them this is your area of specialty, but then you might benefit from this. Most universities is difficult because they think, okay, once you do this, we're going to lose students. But then this institution realized that no, actually, we will gain more students. We will gain more traction by doing this. So I thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Of being back at university and honours and giving your presentation, and like the top student speaks before you, so, and then you get up there and you've got to give your talk and you're just like, oh. But anyway, welcome everybody. It's really great to be here, to the Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, to Gilbert, to the NRF, obviously to all the students and the supervisors of the ACEP Phuhlisa program. It really is an honor to be here today. It's been a long journey that we started a long time ago, and I have heard the word Angus mentioned a few times, but actually it's not me. I think that this project speaks to a key principle that people bandy around nowadays of called co-creation. We learned very early on in the process that don't parachute your ideas into institutions and expect them to work. You know, you need to work within the context of which those institutions worked. And there are people that have walked the road a long way and have provided some great insight. Right from the beginning, Luca Vummazonke was involved with SAIAB and with the Phuhlisa program in the very early days. Obviously, Fort Hare were one of the founding partners with WUSU, Neil Vine, Graham Bradley, my colleagues from Walter Sisulu University, I've got to get it right here. And really it's all of their ideas that came together, and there were step changes in the program from looking at aquatic biodiversity. Luca then said, but what about other things at the university? And then we got hold of people like Graham and Anna Clark, who passed away but was part of the program, and said, and then we said, well, what about marine geology? And then we sort of had that epiphany that looks so obvious now that actually we can really do it broader, and the program actually wasn't about SAIAB. The program was actually about the universities and what can be achieved at the universities, and eventually I think that SAIAB may not be part of the program because the universities will be streets ahead in terms of the infrastructure that they require. And so we went through a long phase of learning, some hard knocks, but also a lot of great achievements with the supervisors and students. And then we had another step change, which was at our 50th birthday at SAIAB. We had a great function. And the reason we're sitting here with the Joint Marine Labs program has got nothing to do with me. It's got to do with this gentleman that cornered the DSI and said, well, look what great work Phuhlisa is doing. But actually, we want infrastructure at our universities as well. And that was just before the whole COVID period. And very nicely, Gilbert organized the first tranche of funds. Gilbert, I think I'd like you to hear a word there. It was called the first tranche of funds. So we very much see this as the start of a process, a new era for the ACEP Phuhlisa program. There are lots of other ideas. We know that University of Zululand is working on an ecotoxicology lab. Walter Sisulu University is working on coastal livelihoods, and then UWC is working on microplastics, but that's just the start. And I couldn't concur more than to agree with Clifford in terms of where the new DSI white paper and the decadal plans going, is redressing the issues of the past. Making sure that we've got a distributed system of excellence, not just focused areas of excellence. Yes, we're not going to be able to have some infrastructure at every single institute or entity because of the cost of that infrastructure, but you certainly want to have basic levels of excellence and pockets of excellence, and then the super expensive stuff can sometimes happen with national facilities such as SAIAB, which can interact with everyone. So I really see this as just, I was going to say half time, but I think it's just halfway between the first half. We're just having a water break at the moment. And we'll definitely be driving the program further. I really do look forward to the NRF, supported by the DSI, supported by the universities, really growing the joint marine laboratories at the universities, and also most importantly expanding it, because that's really what we want. What do we want? We want excellence distributed through the country at all of our institutions. As Clifford said to me, we don't want to bus kids everywhere, okay? They need to see the excellence happening within their own institute, within their own researchers, so that they want to say, where do you want to do your postgrad? Oh, I want to do my postgrad in, oh, you've left by then.
Dr. Kuhl's lab.
Yeah, absolutely. Or I want to do my postdoc or my PhD in Dr. Glas's lab. So I really do think it's important, and I don't want to talk about impact. I think that's naturally here when we talk about things like aquaculture, when we talk about ecology, climate change, microplastics, pharmaceutics, all of these type of things. I think the impact's all apparent. And the one thing I would like to say at the end is really just a big thanks to everyone who's walked the path. Many of you have walked the path for over 10 years. Luca, Neil, Graham, I don't want to bring everyone else. Certainty of funding is such an important component. The DSI, Gilbert, has walked this road for over a decade, getting the telephone calls to me, say, Gilbert, can we help out? And Gilbert and the DSI have always come to the fore. So I'd just like to say that. And then, of course, it's all very nice for us to be standing up here doing the talking and patting people on the back. But there's some real people behind the program that do all the hard work. Apart from the supervisors, I'm talking about the coordinators, and that's Garth van Heerden and Zipo Kanda, and I'd like to give them a round of applause. Thank you very much.
I don't know, to come at the age of 61, almost near the end of your career, and you see such new things developing, you get re-excited, reinvigorated, and you want to start again and go back and maybe go and do a PhD again. But it's absolutely a great pleasure. I started my career as a protein chemist at the then UPE. One of the few universities that at that time focused on protein chemistry. There were only two of us, UKZN and the University of Port Elizabeth. All the others had moved to the molecular biology. When I finished my PhD, I then went to the Stellenbosch Medical School to actually do my postdoc, and there I started learning molecular biology. After that, I went to the Medical Research Council, and there I got exposed also at the medical school to TB, and then I got exposed to diabetes research. And then when I started with my career, academic career at UWC, the question was, what do you want to do? What do you want to research? Where do you want to go? And one of the things I just fell in love with was doing plant biochemistry. And the question was then, well, what's unique? What is the area that you can fill that is not being done anywhere else? And at that stage, plant stress and plant signaling was a very new discipline in biochemistry. So I started with this with vigor, looking at plant stress with the idea that we will be moving to identifying compounds in plants that can be used as potential drugs. So that's where the whole concept of bioeconomy, biodiversity, pharmaceutics all developed right in my early career. So when I came to University of Fort Hare and we were looking at how to expand, I expanded my research and became one of the few that were doing proteomics. in the country. And at that stage, when I developed proteomics, there were only 2 of us. It's now grown up to a huge cohort. But I was proud to be one of the first proteomic researchers in South Africa. Then when Angus in 2012 invited me as a deputy dean to come and brainstorm, how can we expand marine sciences and develop this Phuhlisa program? And at that brainstorming, we thought of this concept, but why focus just on zoology? Why not bring in the other disciplines? And Angus gratefully and Gotham saw the value of that, and that program has now grown into what is today the Phuhlisa program across the 4 universities. And to me, I'm proud to be associated with my colleagues, Associate Professor Neil Vine, Mr. Pile Sibanza, which we hope will soon be Dr. Pile Sibanza, the late Dr. Anna Clark, who actually was one of the first supervisors in the Phuhlisa program to produce a female black PhD student. Who's sitting here today, Elizabeth Fomeo. One of my first, well actually it was the first PhD black South African female in biochemistry to obtain a PhD, Dr. Ntombikayo Nkume. One of the things that Garth said and Angus said, when I take over, or when we become part of this joint marine lab, you are old man. You're a white guy, come on. What is your succession plan? And I presented my succession plan, and Dr. Nkume will be one of those who's been identified as a follow-up. And we will be working strongly with her so that when I retire in 4 or 5 years' time, then we'll have a cohort of Phuhlisa students who can take over my role. I'm also very proud to Faith Masiliva Mashiva is the next PhD student who will be graduating, hopefully in September. And then another first for us is Sita Ntokwana. When we started looking at the molecular biology, because a lot of the problems with algae is the protein content is very low. So when you're trying to isolate a protein, you can't get enough quantities of it. So you've got to look at the molecular biology. And when we looked at the molecular biology of the red algae, all the work, all the genome sequences related to some things that were in China or the East. There was no genome sequence for any red algae along our South African coast. So we started with this, and I'm very glad to say Sita will be one of the first Phuhlisa students to be able to sequence a red algae genome, and from that we will then be able to expand our molecular biology side. So Sita, I'm looking a lot on your plate, congratulations on that one. Then I've always been proud to be associated with a great team. Neil has always been part of us. Neil is looking at the aquaculture side, and we've done a lot of collaborations over time between ourselves in biochemistry, microbiology, and aquaculture. With Pile, with the GIS, there's a lot of GIS data that is out. In fact, Sion, which is now moved to Port Elizabeth, when they were still in Grahamstown, said to me, "You guys have got this GIS lab. Can't we get the guys to come involved with us, because we got this 40 to 50 years of history of data in marine sciences that we need GIS students to be able to analyze." So it's good to have GIS on board. I've also put the challenge to our HOD to expand the GIS program from looking just at the 20% terrestrial to actually look at remote sensing from a marine side. If you're sitting on the surface of an ocean and you're looking 2 miles down to the ocean floor, that to me is remote sensing. So we will be looking at how can we incorporate that into our curriculum, and Angus, you won't be getting rid of us. We will be looking at how we can then practically get our students to experience the remote sensing through ROVs, remote sensing through scuba diving down underneath the ocean, using submarines, using sonar, using all the sign equipment. The students need to be able to work on these, so when they go out and finish our degrees, they are able and equipped to go and do the job out there when people like myself have long retired and we can sit there on our stoop and watch our cohort coming through and running with the programs we develop. So I would say thank you very much to DSI, to Clifford from the NRF, Vummazonke from DSI, and Kurt, I haven't met you before, but I'm sure we will be meeting you in the future. And one of the things Garth asked me, he says, so Graham, you've got this piece of equipment, so now what? I said, Garth, how much money have you got? Because we can grow this. I mean, there is no end to what we can do here at the University of Fort Hare with our colleagues at the Walter Sisulu University, Unizol, and Anusha at UWC. We can grow this program, and I'm excited to be a part of this. And thank you very much for the University of Fort Hare, for the VC, for the DVC was then AA, where research was. She's now given up that portfolio to Dr. Tali Majimba, but we're looking forward to driving this program and for you to be proud of what we're doing at the University of Fort Hare. So, Garth, if I can ask the colleagues to formally come up and actually unveil the plaque for us, to formally open the.
You just pull it down.
Pull it down. Okay, it's going down, 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 down.
Thank you very much, everyone.